Anyway, first and foremost, one correction I want to make, and nothing against you, Judy, but this is definitely not my soccer team. I was just fortunate and blessed to be the coach at the time that these boys came through. And that's the first thing I want to say as I introduce them and talk about their season is, as a soccer coach, as a teacher in this district, it's definitely, none of this would have happened, I know, in my life without God's blessing and His hand on things. And it was just a privilege for me to be associated with these young men and to be able to share at various times through either my actions or through conversations my faith. And I'm very grateful to everybody in this district and to these young men for allowing me to share in this part of their lives. I'm just going to read briefly. 2005 was an outstanding year for our soccer program. And there was a lot leading up to that, past teams and traditions and standards of excellence that Coach Tom Johnson before me and other coaches that have established. And a lot of these young boys, before they got to high school, got to witness that. As they came through high school, and we were privileged to see them grow, not only on the soccer field, but off the field. A lot of good times. And 2005 for the senior group, I think, was just a very special way. I don't know how they could end their season any better. But as you can read in the program, they finished with a record of 26-1. The only loss we had was to a team that we had beaten the week before. 19 of the 22 boys on that team played somewhere collegiately after high school and continued their careers. So very good players, great athletes. We set many records during the season. We had a couple All-State players, our only All-American player that we've had at Glenwood High School at the time. So all those things were, outstanding. A couple things I want to share about this team, along with that is they finished with ranked 25th nationally high school boys soccer by the Soccer Coaches Association. And that's tremendous. You think about all the high schools that have boys soccer, we finished ranked 25th that year. And maybe could have been higher. Obviously there's no perfect way on doing those things, but a tremendous achievement for these boys. The things I remember about that year of this team, this group of guys, is a couple years before the senior class, when they were sophomores, we finished 4th in the state tournament. And I think that just kind of primed them. And you could see their competitiveness coming through. And you talk about as a coach, and I'm sure Coach Fox had great leaders that he remembers, the teams that he coached in basketball. As a coach, there's only so much you can teach on leadership. I think you can enhance that, help them mature, but some groups of kids come through and they have certain players, just outstanding leaders. We had both individuals, but also as a group. I remember things in practice coaches and I would have to control because these guys were so competitive, to the edge of almost fighting with each other over just the score of a game, a little activity that we're doing. They would make anything into a competition. And as a coach here, that just gets you fired up even more because they're training on the edge every day. They're trying to get better every day. It really means a lot to them. So that was tremendous. And I can say in my 22 years of coaching, I have not just because you guys are out here today, but I have not had another group come through that had that kind of leadership at this time. I hope to be privileged to have another group like that again before I retire. But I've got a couple stories that I'll share. There's many, many stories, and I'm going to let a couple of the boys talk, but just introducing them. Anytime to explain to some of you in high school, high school soccer at the time, the state of Illinois, we had 2 classes, and it was split pretty much down the middle. So in 2003, when these boys got 4th, we were in Class A, a smaller class. We were one of the bigger schools, but our district grew in size. We bumped up to the AA class. So we made it to the state tournament of the final 8 schools. Urbana High School and us, we were about the same size. The rest of the schools there, at least twice, if not some of them almost 3 times our size in enrollment. And that's a huge difference when you get that selection of players to come through. So what makes that, to me, that makes what these guys accomplish that much more special. We go the year before, the team went undefeated, lost in the sectional final. And I think those guys, if we didn't lose that game, I don't think that desire would be in their hearts as it was to compete, and that goal to be the best they could be would be there if we didn't lose that game. So things always happen for a reason. And I think that's what their junior year, the seniors' junior year, that's what happened. So they came into the next year, and from day one, it's just a dream situation for a coaching staff. Guys who are ready to compete, ready to improve. They just want to get out there and play every single day, rain, sleet, snow, sunshine, whatever it may be, and do the things that they needed to do on and off the field to be part of the team. Were all these guys angels? No. There's some moments where we had to discipline, but that goes with being a high school boy. But the thing that we are proud of is how they reacted to those, whether it be individuals or as a team. If someone was injured, someone was out because of discipline or something, other guys would step forward. And they all would learn from those mistakes. And you can see the young men that they've become in just 10 years. Many of them married now, having children of their own, great careers started. Makes you proud to be associated with those guys then. As we get into the tournament at the end of the season, in soccer we started with the regional level. Guys went through that pretty easily with a couple of the Decatur schools. And then in the sectionals we were hosts, beat a rival in Sacred Heart Griffin, and then came down to playing a Jacksonville team who was an excellent team in their own right, and come from behind and win the game. Many of you might have seen the video out there with about 4 seconds to play. The kind of attitude that these guys had, we could get down a goal, and in the game of soccer, if you ever watched or known about it, the best team doesn't always win. You can give a goal and sometimes still lose the game and be 10 times the team. But these guys they could come from behind, they could play with the lead, and in the tournament, in the playoffs, came from behind a couple times. And we came back and won that game with Jacksonville as we had come from behind the game before against Griffin. So now we're playing a super sectional game in pretty much a swamp down in Granite City against Belleville Altoff. And again, a close game, but the guys played very well and came out, and just to make it to a state tournament, to win a super sectional game if you're part as an athlete and make it to a state tournament is probably, to me, the most memorable thing as a coach. And I don't know about the boys, but just that feeling that you're going to go to a state tournament is outstanding. And at the time in soccer, if you make it to a state tournament, you have the quarterfinals on Friday and then a semifinal and final on Saturday. Many people don't realize in our country, soccer is not meant to be played one game back-to-back days. To play it correctly, if you look at other countries in Europe and everywhere, you might play 2 games a week and they're spread out. For some reason in the United States, we cram everything together. So we're playing a full game on a Friday against a strong opponent and then have to come back and win 2 more to be state champions. So the quarterfinals, the boys play Orland Park Sandburg, a school at least twice our size, and have a great game, come out victorious. Now we know we get to play 2 more, which was our whole goal. We got there, now we want to play the full allotment of games. And the 2 quick stories I'm going to tell you about them in the tournament. One thing I remember before that quarterfinal game, and I'll come back to finish this, was I telling the guys, I was 10 years younger then, 35 years old, I still would play and practice once in a while. Now I'm starting to get beat a lot more because these guys, I'm older and they're really good. But I had some shoes, okay? So I always, as a coach, I would, you taught to be prepared as a coach, make sure kids are going to forget things are going to break. So I just kept my shoes in my bag. And I remember before the quarterfinals in the locker room telling them, talking about the game there, and just saying, guys, listen, I know some of you, your shoes blow out or whatever. If you wear something like a size 9 or so, I've got a pair. Don't worry about it. So we go on. We're playing through that tournament, and this, to me, shows the character of these young men. There were a couple players in particular, and several. You play 11 at a time on the soccer field. We use subs quite frequently. We would sub 3, probably 4 guys consistently, maybe even more. But there's 2 particular players I remember, I don't think they had played maybe since in the regional, maybe a few games. And they're there every day in training. You're always, as a coach, telling your reserves, you guys got to be ready. You're extremely important to the team. You've got to push the starters in practice. You've got to be prepared. If your number's called, we need you to come in and perform. Well, one thing I remember, we win the quarterfinal. The next day, the semifinal game went to overtime. We come from being 2 goals down, win 3-2. These guys are exhausted. We played 2 games in less than 24 hours. Now we've got to come back somehow and play a third. So in the final game against the Rockford Boylan team, it was a tremendous team. The guys are competing and just playing their hearts out. The one thing I can remember about some of the guys that, let's quote, reserves, we had to call on, go a little deeper in our bench than we had. So there's a couple players, and one of them was able to be here today, that came out and contributed greatly in the championship game, some significant minutes. And one even had an assist on the first goal. So, but my point with that is these guys were ready. They weren't moping, they didn't have their heads down. They were there for the team, whatever it took. If they were just going to contribute in practice, they would have been fine. But they were ready, and when called on, gave the team a lift. And I'll never forget that about them, because when you know, as high school athletics, you can have a lot of jealousy. You can have, everybody wants to play, and it's getting more and more rare, unfortunately, nowadays, that some students would accept the role to just be that team player, being in a reserve position. And I'll never forget that about these guys, because everybody was for the team first and foremost. So we go on and we win the state tournament 2-1 against Rockford Boylan. But getting back to the shoes, the funny part of the story to finish this with my shoes, I played high school soccer, not nearly as good as these boys, all right? Never played for a state title, nothing even close. So I'm half kidding with them on that day when I told them about my shoes. I said, somebody's shoes break, at least maybe my shoes will get to play for a state title. I didn't. I wasn't good enough. Well, sometime during, I think, the first half of the game, one of our players is kind of hobbling around out there, and we have to sub him out. It's Neil Wilmarth, and what's the problem? This kid never asked to come out of the game. If he was getting lazy or something, I might have to jerk him out, but he never asked to come out of the game. So he's got a shoe in one hand, and the whole bottom section of the shoe is ripped off, just blew out. And so now I'm thinking, what size shoe do you wear? It just happens we wear the same size. So he puts my shoes on, the game goes along. We get up by a goal, and Dustin Curtis lay the ball to Dennis McElhaney, and we score. We're up 1-0. Boylan comes back to tie the game. Right afterwards on the kickoff, Neil, he's got my shoes on now. He plays the ball out wide to Hunter Shad, who's another player that's here today, and play it back. And the other team's not ready. They're still celebrating that they tied the game. We score just like that. And we hold on to win the state title. Never, you dream about it as a player, you dream about it as a coach, you think about that. What kind of, how great of a moment that would be. It's just outstanding. And it seems funny, but I was thinking, my shoes scored a goal. That came to my mind just a split second. That year we had a banquet at the end of the year, and I had these shoes at the banquet, and I made Neil come up and sign them, so I could keep them, and I haven't put them on since. But just, a lot of memories from that year. And just most of them, though, that's just something funny on the side, but it's just about that senior group and the junior group under them. Those two were the core of the team that year. And the 4 years that I had with each of those groups of boys and their families were some of the best I've had as a coach. And not because of the wins, not because of the trophies, because of the people they are and the people that these boys have become. The young men that they've become, and the support that we got as coaching staff from their families at the time. And I think if you talk to most of the coaches that have been privileged to work here at Glenwood High School, that they've had those kind of experiences with the parents in the community and the support that we've achieved, we've been able to get. So, it's a tremendous honor today to be considered for the Hall of Fame. and to be honored the same day of all the other honorees today. I mean, just some tremendous people, and it's just very humbling for us to be part of that. Just another blessing that I've received in my coaching career. The one thing before I bring these guys up to introduce them and let a couple of players talk, some people say, well, when you think of 2005, that's probably one of the biggest memories you'll have. I said, yeah, it is. But there's one thing that triumphs over that. That was also a couple months later when I first met my wife, Lisa. So that is going to be that's my first memory of that year. But very proud to be part of, again, these boys' lives and proud of them of what they've accomplished since high school. And something we'll always have to share together is this state championship. We were pleased at the time and still pleased to be able to honor and represent Glenwood High School. So what I'd like for now is any of the players and the coaches from that team that are here, please come up on the stage and we'll introduce you. A couple of players to accept the award. I'm going to have a couple of the boys come up and accept it on behalf of the team and share a few words, and then I'll go through and hand out their plaques and introduce each one individually to you, and we'll go from there. Let's have seniors that year, Neil Wilmarth and James Dice, come on up here.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Coach Short for putting this on and the committee for honoring us with this tremendous honor. We're all proud of the accomplishments that we've had. We got a lot going for us in the future, though. But James is going to say a few words about some past moments and memories.
Thanks, Neil. Neil always did everything pretty quick, so I gotta slow things down for us here. I guess first of all, we just really want to thank our parents. All of the years and years and years of weekend tournaments, practices, really bad referees that you guys watched leading up to 2005. And we also want to thank our coaches. We got a kind of a long list here. I hope I don't forget anyone, but these guys have been obviously led up to what we're able to accomplish. Nick Traina, who's here tonight, Evan Seelbach, Chris Noonan, who's here tonight, Paul Marconi, Greg Light, Tom Johnson, and Jay Light, who obviously are here tonight as well. All of these coaches, Jay especially, coached for character, not just for soccer, and that has definitely paid off for all of us since then. So thanks to those guys. Also, thanks to these guys for letting me come up here and say a few words for them. I asked all of the seniors to kind of give me some thoughts and some stories and some feelings as they kind of look back on what we did that year. Some of them were very sentimental. I'm going to try to leave those out. Leave it to my mom to be the only one that cries today. Some of them were very detailed plays or goals. Some of them were very, very funny stories that might not be appropriate for today. So I thought I would summarize some lessons that kind of came to the top once they all sent me in their answers to my questions. These kind of things that kind of happened on their own, it seems like. They kind of let us turn into men from boys, I think. So first of all, I think I want to say we learned that you make your own luck. I think from the outside, watching that playoff run, watching that whole season, an outsider might have said, oh, they caught some really good bounces. What a Cinderella story going up there and beating the Chicago boys. But I think that'd be missing all of the years and years and years of bonding we did. Like Coach said, all the beating each other up in practice. I think we beat each other up a lot harder at home. So that probably helped too. Second, and I know it's sort of cliche, but we learned to never give up. So that state semifinal, I think we were down 2-0. I know we were down 2-0. On the second goal, you guys might have saw it in the highlight video, the two Trevors on the team ran into each other. One Trevor lost 3 teeth. It would have been really easy and understandable for us to give up at that point. I mean, look how far we made it. We could have been proud of ourselves. But I think we dusted ourselves off. Paul had an unbelievable goal to get us back in it right before halftime. So we just completely refused to give up. Third, I think we learned to never panic. In the state final, we were up 1-0, and I think the momentum was kind of turning towards the other way. I mean, they scored with about 5 minutes left to tie it. It would have been easy to sort of freak out at that point, and I think I probably was freaking out. But Neil took the ball and took it up to half field, put it on the circle, and just said, well, we're going to go score again. And 10 seconds later, the ball was in the other team's net. And I think that's sort of stuff that just happens and you look back and you go, man, I think that can really be applied to a lot of different situations in life. And I think we all have applied those lessons to our lives since then. So thank you for inducting us today, and congrats to all the other inductees. It's an honor to be up here alongside you guys. So thanks.
First, I'll introduce 2 of our coaches that were part of the staff that year. One coach was not able to be here, B.J. Moore, lives in Champaign now. But 2 of the others, first, my brother Greg, who trained with our goalkeepers that year. And next, one of the other special things about that season was when I started coaching at Glenwood, Tom Johnson was the head coach and was the head coach here many years. And when I say earlier established of the standards that we had, as how we play as a Glenwood player, whether it be on the field and off the field, and character standards, that's a tribute to Tom and the coaches that were with him before I came along. And we just try to continue that. So it's very special to have Tom come back and be an assistant coach with me through this time. So we'll give Tom a hand. And these guys are going to help me as we hand out the plaques to the young men up here. I'll just go down the line. First we have Trevor Noonan in far end. He was our goalkeeper. Next down there we have Blair Spencer. Blair was a senior on that team, forward for us. Next we have Tim Johnson, who was a junior defender for us. Next, another senior on that team, Paul Hummel. Next line here, Dustin Curtis was a junior. Another senior that year, outside back, Brian Curry. Had a midfield player as a junior that year, Dominic Trainer. Another junior that season, forward, was Ryan South. Sorry, I'm looking at Ryan, his brother Paul South. Sorry. You can punch me in the arm for that. Sorry. Next senior that forward that year, Ryan South. Another senior midfielder, Hunter Shad. Senior forward, Neil Wilmart. And the final player we have today here was a senior midfielder, James Dice. We'll say this, we were fortunate to have a girls team inducted last year. Their names, a lot of them all changed their last name. It was difficult for me to know those. This is much easier. So, I'm very proud of these young men, and we're thank everybody involved on the committee with the Hall of Fame, and thank all of you for staying and honoring these young men too.